creating curiosity by asking better questions. This is Shed Talk. Jeff Humphreys, the things you know that you don't know. What do you know about AI? What do you know about podcasts? What do you know about social media? This is a guest you gotta hear. Jeff Humphreys. Jeff Humphreys, thank you very much for joining me on Shed Talk.
Thanks for having me. What number is this?
Well, for me, it would be like number 7 or 8.
Awesome.
But this is what the greatest thing about today is, because I get to have a guy, and I heard so much about you. This is what? How many podcasts have you done?
So we shot 101 and released number 96.
That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's the numbers, like all of a sudden you just like get over this hump and they just go boom.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So the biggest question I have, and a lot of people are going to ask the same question, and I'm a new podcaster in there, and people say, well, how did you get started in this? But the greatest thing I really want to know is all of a sudden you do all these podcasts. How many podcasts do you actually go on like this?
So I think I was on a face-to-face. This is the first one. Mm-hmm. Maybe I've done 2 remote. That's it. Maybe 3. That's no exaggeration. Maybe 3 first face-to-face.
Oh my God. So I'm like this would be your virgin time
Exactly,
starting.
yeah.
Oh my God. So a face-to-face, does it feel a little bit different?
Well, it's funny. It's funny sitting on this side of the chair, right? Because usually with my experience, I'm the one asking the questions. So this face-to-face feels very normal with a mic in front of me. This exchange feels normal. The line of questioning is the flip for me because I'm not used to that.
Oh my gosh. So then what we're going to do is we're going to dive deep into what we call curiosity. So we're going to talk a little bit about curiosity. And I want to know what's your take on curiosity as sitting in that seat?
Well, that's part of the reason why I say yes to this experience, right? I'm just kind of curious to see what happens. So it's curiosity of who you are as a host, and it's curiosity around what am I going to say. So the whole experience is kind of built around it, and I think the word curiosity came up in a conversation today. Somebody was asking me about the show and just how it all works, and the idea of curiosity is very interesting. It kind of drives conversations. I think if you actually are curious about the other person you're sitting across from, you'll start asking questions. And if you don't have that curiosity, it's just like a one-way conversation. So I think curiosity is a big driver to make these things good, whatever good means, but, engaging at least.
Mm-hmm. So with the curiosity, and you started way back 19 what?
Well, the first one went out like December 6, 2020. So coming up 3 years.
Why did you do it?
So it's a bit of a story. So I started my own business 4 years ago. So I have a digital storytelling business, and I knew when I started it, I needed to create a brand. And I knew that I didn't like the idea of holding a cell phone in front of my face and just talking to it. But I knew I needed to create video just to put it on all the different platforms. So the podcast idea. So if I'm going to do a podcast, I'm going to do a video podcast because I have a bit of a multimedia background. I understand audio, video, tech, and cameras and stuff. So I knew I could pull this off. So a good friend of mine, Doug Cook, a very talented videographer in town here, came down to the studio, helped me set up the first show. And then I started recording it. And the idea was just to, like I said, build a brand. So have a long form piece of content that I can chop up into micro moments and then post online. And then people start getting a sense of who I am, what makes me tick, without me just looking at a cell phone and talking to it. So it was, that was the basic idea. And it's turned into something wildly different.
Interesting. Now, let's talk a little bit about the brand, because you just brought that up. How important that is with companies or people that you've actually interviewed in podcasts, because you do entrepreneurs, you do athletes, and a lot of people will talk a lot bit about brand.
Yeah.
But what is brand?
Brand's a very dirty marketing word. And being in that space, I rarely say that I'm in the marketing world because, it's a dirty word also. So the word brand is more than, the way I like to articulate it, is more than your logos and your colors. It's not a font book. It's not a brand book. It's not these guidelines that somebody charges you a lot of money for. Brand is how people feel about your business or you as a person. So when I decide I need to create a brand, I needed people to see me, hear me, and and get a feeling for my vibe. That's the brand. And then for me, the cool thing about it was my good friend Rob Sawchuk from Turkey and Pistols. He actually hand drew my logo. So like every curl in my fro, he drew it out. So my brand, yes, I have a cool logo, but the brand is like, what do people think when they see me or hear my name? So that's, doing it on video is a way different experience than just audio.
Oh, and it totally is, because I look back and from my day and age, go because I'm quite a bit older than yourself, and then when you first started on the internet and you're going through there, brand then to what brand is now is, oh my gosh, night and day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think with all the tools out there, like all these digital platforms, the brand is like the voice. It's like what's behind whatever you're selling, whatever organization you've popped up. Right? It's got to be that you got to humanize it, which that's where I kind of tie the two. Building a brand and humanizing a brand kind of work together. And yeah, you're right. Tech has allowed everyone to kind of have a voice and find their voice, and it's less about what colors and what fonts you're using and those kind of like basic brand ideas.
So as a young entrepreneur going to start off, and they need a brand coach,
Yeah.
and it's for someone to walk them through this whole process. And when we talk brand, we're going to talk social media. We're going to, and like you said, colors and this. It's more than that.
Yeah.
So as an entrepreneur, how would you walk them through your whole process?
It's an interesting question. I think the what I like to do is kind of like almost interview them. Just like the podcast experience, like whatever. I like to sit down and just hear what they want to do, what they're about, what they value. It's kind of that who and why, right? And that kind of gives you a jumping off point, because people when they start a business, they tend to want to just sell the product and the service. How do I get more eyeballs on it? How do I sell more units? It's very, this better than me, right? Start something, you got to sell something. Makes sense. But I think the first move is like, how can I tell people what I'm selling? And I think it's reverse engineering it and allowing them to think about what makes you different. What drives you? What do people need to know to connect with you? Like they need to connect with the human before they start connecting with the product on a very kind of basic level. So the brand approach is like just you have to dig into yourself, which can be uncomfortable. Like, are you willing to talk about what makes you tick versus just hiding behind a logo and product that you're trying to sell? So the approach is it's more of a human branding experience than the traditional, well, what are you selling? Okay, well, we can make ads against that product. We can make different graphics with this product. So it's kind of, I'm not saying you don't do that, but I think the first thing you lead with is kind of that human side of it and figuring that out.
So now let's get back in a little bit even deeper into that conversation here. What about the social media side of that?
So digital is obviously where you got to play.
I'm going to interrupt there, but what's the difference between digital and social media? Sorry.
Same thing.
They're identical.
In social media is a tool in a digital space.
So, because I'm looking at social media, digital space, I'm thinking, okay, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook,
TikTok.
TikTok, correct. And then all of a sudden, there's a whole different side: YouTube, podcasting, book writing, and stuff, and a whole different side of that whole digital aspect of it. And then, how does that social side work?
The social side is like social media has allowed everybody to have a voice. Gone are the days where you need like traditional media outlets, traditional media tools to give you exposure. Social has allowed us to, with a cell phone, which is a low cost for entry, allows us to create a voice and then to start building a brand around that. And I think the miss is there's a lot of power in that. And I think if you don't control that, if you don't be very thoughtful and mindful of what you're showing to the world, then it can catch up to you. But without social, you and I aren't here. Like it would have taken us a lot longer to connect without having these social tools. So it's I find it interesting getting into those conversations around what people think about social media. Some people are like, I don't do it.
But what about you?
It is the tool, it's the technology that's allowed me to do what I do for the last 14 years.
If you're to go back 6 months ago,
Yep.
and we're going to talk tools,
Yep.
a tool then, because it's one of those things that it changes all the time. If you see it on the paper, it's already too late.
Yep.
You're already at the cusp, like at the leading edge of technology, leading edge of this. You see it, you've already become that. So in the last 6 months, in what you're doing, What's been the greatest change in the social media side?
AI. I'm fascinated with AI, and it's for me. I look at AI. AI is the biggest change in the last 6 months for sure. Doesn't matter what platform. There hasn't been a new platform come out in the last 6 months. TikTok's obviously ridiculous, but it's been around longer than that. AI is the thing that has changed the game, and we're just at just the tip of it, and it's not even what's going to happen in the next couple of years is going to be mind altering, and I think the fear of AI is very similar to that when the internet first came, and people were like, "This is going to change the world. We're going to lose jobs. We're going to, people are going to be glued to this internet thing. They won't be able to exchange. They want to be able to have conversations because they're going to be locked in this. AI is that same kind of disruption right now, and I think it was the internet, social, and now AI is kind of like Web 1, 2, and 3. And so I think AI is this thing, this just disruptor that's here. And yeah, I'm pumped. I'm enjoying doing the research on it.
How do you feel AI is going to affect you? Now, I know you're not saying in the negative aspect, because when you go back to when you first started, you're all about the internet.
Yep.
And then how you contacted people, then you started, then you built off it.
Yep.
What's the greatest advantage with AI?
AI is it's going to allow me to automate processes that are production related, that are you don't need a high level of skill to accomplish them. You just need time to do these things. AI is going to speed the process up, which is then going to allow me to work on my business and push things forward versus be on the tools and be in the weeds doing kind of like production style tasks. So it's also going to allow me to be a little more creative. Instead of just sitting there waiting for an idea or just trying to think of a different way to do it, prompt this thing to give you some suggestions. Like just have a different jumping off point, which I think is where it's really powerful. It might not be the answer, but it might give me 5 ideas and I can take 3 of those and make my idea. So I think it's just like it's having this very creative sounding board, which I like.
So if we were to BHAG this, and you're familiar with BHAG, big audacious goal, and use AI for one thing that it would do for you, and just even though say it doesn't,
Yeah.
I'm just using this to say, let's just go right craziness.
Yep.
What would you want something to do? What would be the superpower of AI?
The superpower for me right now would be related to podcasting.
But let's take it deeper. Go down deeper and say, okay, I want to be able to have AI actually produce and do everything for me.
Yep.
Or is there something else there?
I think for me it's if I can the podcast production is such a time commitment
How much time does that?
for every show.
Yeah.
It's by the time because we don't have a standing studio, right? So we got to go set up, shoot, tear down, post production. There's a lot of hours there behind the scenes that are happening, right? Man hours of doing things. So the golden button that would take all the data, camera cuts, audio syncs, chop it into things and be done with it. That would be my thing right now. Why would that be beneficial? It would free me up to do other things.
How many hours does it free you up on?
In a week, it would free me up. Podcast related things, it would free up easy 20 hours.
Is that you take 20 hours to do a podcast to put it together? Is that correct?
Me and my team.
Wow.
So it's not the energy of like sitting down for 60 minutes or 25 minutes. That's the easy part.
Oh yeah, trust me. I'm sitting on this side of it,
Yeah.
and I get to talk to you about this because you're on the other side of it, and I've looked at and watched the snippets of you. I've never seen a podcast, but everyone I've ever talked about you has actually been truly amazing. The hair, when you're talking the locks, yeah, it is definitely it's definitely your character, your brand
For sure.
So your brand, but 20 hours to do that. Now, a normal person going into to do podcasts, is this a difficult transition to get into?
This isn't easy. The people that think it's easy are the ones that always say things are easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones sitting on the sidelines saying, it's easy to do. Have you done it? No, but I've read about it. All right. That's interesting. I think this industry and this art form is work. And there's hours to pull this off. And there's people out there online that could say it's easy, just do it. If it's an audio only, and you're great with putting a cell phone on the table, having a conversation, and putting that up on the platforms, easy. That would take 27 minutes by the time you record it and upload it.
So then why do people all of a sudden they'll say, and you go on social media and they go, oh, you know what? We can do your stuff here in 10 minutes. Here you go. Be your own podcast host in this. And what is the statistics? I know we talked earlier, but I want to make sure I got it right, is that in people that do podcasts, was there 2 million podcasts out there and only 5 of them do, what is it? How many podcasts?
Dude,
15?
The way you don't read books,
Exactly.
you and I are the exact same way, because I don't know any stats about anything. I honestly, this is when you and I first talked on the phone, and it was like my alarm bells are going off, because you're like, well, I don't read books and I don't listen to podcasts. I'm like, huh, no shit, neither do I.
And that's what makes this so dynamic, is that just because of the fact that we're able to sit here, we're able to talk to people about podcasts and go, yeah, we never looked at them.
Yeah.
I don't even read.
Yeah.
But we're going to tell you something that from our experience sharing, that changes the world for us, because we get to control the narrative.
For sure.
That is so.
So I think there is an easy way to do it. And I think there is, in some of these platforms or companies that are selling like the quick turnkey stuff, they're just using AI to kind of quickly do things, which is fine. But I have a sneaky feeling it's more heavily based on audio than this, 2-3 camera setup, chop it up, and. So I think I think there's an easy way to do it. And then there's like going all in on the video idea, which is a game changer.
And now the video is that like YouTube and doing the same podcast, and then adding the video like what we have here is doing the video.
Yeah. So the video piece, like all the social platforms, if you think about them, so Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, they're all based on vertical videos. So if the algorithm is
when you mean vertical, up down, so if I have my phone this way?
Yep, totally. So 9x16s.
Okay.
The algorithms are they're giving you more attention based on you uploading videos. So if you're trying to create a brand, if you're trying to put content out there and it's not video based, you're kind of missing an opportunity. So if you're going to put the energy in to do a podcast, why not try and do both? Why not get the videos so you can work the algorithms, grab the audio so they can live on all the podcast platforms. And then, by the way, Spotify allows you to upload a video. So as a Spotify user, you can either choose to watch the podcast or listen to it. So if they've done that already, sure shit, the rest of them are going to do it. So the video is this kind of, it's the work piece, and there's, whether you do it yourself, which is possible, or you hire it out, but there's that work piece, and that's a barrier to entry for a lot of people.
Interesting. So another quick on that is that your guests, when you have your guests on there, are a lot of them about brand? Like they're entrepreneurs, they're athletes.
Yep.
Are there a lot of them that really focus on brand?
It's interesting. So the conversations I have are kind of like their life journey. So they start telling me they're this like journey of how they got to where they are. But the interesting thing is they're on the show for a reason. They do have a brand. So whether they've consciously or subconsciously decided, they have a presence in the world. So for me, looking for interesting guests, I'm looking at people that have a brand essentially. And the characters that I have on the show have just either done it naturally or they've accomplished something in their life that kind of gives them instant recognition and awareness. So yeah, I think that we don't talk about, there's been 2 episodes. One was Haley Daniels, an Olympian. She talked about brand, which was spectacular. Another lady, Lara Smith, she talked about brand too. So brand does come up a little bit as these entrepreneurs are talking about their business and how they built it, but it's it just kind of comes up sporadically and very organically.
If you could change anything in the last 100 years, 100 episodes, what would you do besides adding AI in there?
I'm doing some very interesting things now creatively with the show and post-production. So I wish I would have had the best cameras, better lights, and more creativity on the post-production out of the gate, which is impossible, right? Like we all have an idea that's really good to start with and then just keeps on building. Me just being a bit of a perfectionist, I would have loved to have it like dead right out of the gate, but that's not possible. But yeah, I think it just would have been more on the look and feel. That's where I would have kind of tried to improve. And besides that, though, it's been a really cool experience.
Now, building a brand on yourself, okay, because you're building yourself,
Yep.
and then the stuff that you used to do before, because I understand you did social media for in the hospitality
Yep.
industry,
Yep.
and that was kind of like getting you started to get going.
Mm,
And was that the greatest stepping stone to get you into your business
yep.
and get that going?
Totally. So that my last job before I started my business was with a restaurant group that had 100 restaurants across North America, and I managed all the digital marketing for all those locations and those brands. That allowed me to figure out social media. It allowed me to figure out how to spend money on ads on Google, Facebook, Instagram. Essentially, I got to like prove out my theory in this big organization. And then when it was time to do my own thing, I kind of had all the tools in my tool belt. So without that experience, without working for those guys for that long, it would have been much harder for me to do what I'm doing right now. When I left, it was a quick transition to starting my own thing and moving forward quickly because I had all these tools. So my entrepreneurial journey is just a little bit different. It's not like an internal. I didn't start early. I started later in my life. I was 33 when I started working at this company. I started my own business when I was 43. So it took me a long time to like figure it out. And then when I was ready to go, like I said, I had all the tools to pull this off.
Who was your first account?
My first account was this company called CDR. This guy that his name's Carl Dennis, and I water ski with him. That's
That
yeah. So the water skiing world is very obscure and very small and very community driven. So, start my business, start creating content online, building my brand. I start catching myself on camera, speaking in front of panels or speaking in front of RBC branch managers, and I record myself talking about how businesses should operate online. Record it, chop it, throw it up on LinkedIn. So now these little videos live on LinkedIn of me talking about how you should spend money on ads, how if I owned a business, this is what I'd be doing, these are the platforms I'd be on. Carl sees me talking on LinkedIn, sends me an email and says, hey, we need help. We've been thinking about this. Do you want to come talk to me? Go to talk to him, and he gives me a 12-month contract 4 weeks after I started my business.
Oh, that's a brilliant. Now, from the first day that you started this, I'm going back. I want to drill into that because
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Because the greatest thing about it is I'm listening to this for the first time, and I own a bunch of whatever I do.
Yep.
But the greatest thing about it is all of a sudden, have you gone back to do the exact same thing you did? That ad, because as soon as you said the LinkedIn, I'm going, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. How many people are doing that?
So my whole approach since day one, and this is the approach that I had with the restaurant group. The minute I started my business, I knew I needed to put video up on every single platform I was on: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And so I just did it over and over, literally over and over. I set up a little like recording space in my basement. I would record videos, chop them, and post them on all the different platforms. I wasn't selling my service. I never once said, I'm selling social media. I can like help you. I'm just educating people on the power of it. Essentially, just giving them enough information that they're curious, and then they ask me something. That ask might turn into a meeting, and that meeting might turn into a contract. So it's the same thing that I do with clients. It's the same, like it's put it all out there, be very authentic with it, and start creating inbound traffic that's very organic.
It's interesting because as an entrepreneur and you're going in there and you talk about social media, everyone, and I'll use the saying, everyone and their dog does it, and is trying to find the right guy to do it so that people advertise, oh, I do the social media, I do this. And it's like, no, you actually don't. And then you get into it, oh, I charge whatever their fees are.
Yep.
But the approach that you're going, people are actually following to take you
Yep.
and say, okay, you actually have a gift and ability that you're going to fill my needs and wants.
Yep.
And so you get to really see that, because we always get pigeonholed in this guy knows this and this.
For sure.
Now, question is about purchasing ads. Is that important?
Yeah. So the purchasing ads thing is a dark science. That is where all the action is.
Oh, really?
It's the
Now, what would you call all the action? What does that mean?
So our idea is every time you post something on social, you want interaction, right? You want engagement. You want somebody to DM you about something. You want to like. You want to comment. You want a business lead, whatever it is, right? You're looking for something. We're posting for a reason, right? It's to like showcase what you're doing. So when you run ads, it's like throwing gasoline on that idea. I can create an ad on any platform, and I'm going to generalize a little bit here on any platform: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Target by age, by interest, by location. So you and I were sitting on a podcast, and if you were a professional cyclist,
Which I'm not, but close enough.
but we'll give it to you.
Yeah. Okay.
I can then chop up the intro and you talking about being a professional cyclist and you won the Tour de France. I could take that video, build an ad on Facebook and Instagram, and target people that live in Canada that are between the ages of 45 and 57 that are interested in the Tour de France and cycling. And then all of a sudden on Instagram, they see your face talking about, yeah, I'm a retired pro rider. They're like, oh, that's interesting. I'm interested in cycling. That's the power, right? So you dump gas on the idea, which creates more exposure.
Now, is it fairly expensive to do that?
It is arguably the cheapest form of advertising in the world right now. Like cheaper than TV, cheaper than print media, probably cheaper than renting a plane and flying a banner behind it.
Well, I've done some other ones that are inexpensive. I've done press releases.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the power of a press release with the SEOs. It's like, it's kind of one of those best kept secrets was a press release.
Yep.
But I've never really dived deep into the ad thing because I think, okay, I'm going to go into the ads. But I did that just personally because I have no idea. So it's
if you do it right, if you spend right, if you run the right creative, so make it look good, spend your money properly. I like targeted.
And that's where you would come in on social to say, okay, this is how that system works in play. You decide you can do whatever you want, but you work in that realm.
Yep. So essentially, when a business owner wants to get more exposure, and they have a message that can be targeted towards a specific audience, then I know how to break it down and give them a budget based on how big the audience is. So it's not that arbitrary. You can actually do some math against it and come up with a number that makes sense based on your audience size. So that's why I say dark science, because there's some things behind the scenes. Like it's the exact same analogy that you said when they're like, people, it's easy to do a podcast. People say it's easy. Social media is easy and it's easy to run ads. I agree. You can hit the boost button, it'll go far. Is it getting you the results you want? It's probably debatable.
It's kind of like looking at the podcast and you look at it and go, well, man, they make it look so easy. And I always call it, one of the biggest things was Fred Flintstoning it. Have you ever heard that statement?
No.
So we call it, I work Fred Flintstone. What does that mean? Well, when you ever watch Fred Flintstone, you see it at the TV and you look at the front and you're watching the TV. But if you actually turn around and go to the back of the TV and you look and you see this little dinosaur running, this is that, so you get to see the inner workings as an entrepreneur. Yeah, we make it look easy, but in the back end, there's this guy doing this, but you never see that back end. So Fred Flintstoning it.
And that's interesting, right? People probably look at you and be like, he's got it so easy. He gets to do all these things,
But I get to meet great people like yourself, and we interview. This is exactly what it's. But this is what life is all about. To be able to sit here, have a conversation. I'm number 3 in your life of 100 podcasts that you do to be able to sit here and have face to face and create an experience that we get to share. So we're just about going to be wrapping up pretty quick. Is there any one tidbit that you would like to share that you would put out there, being on the opposite side of the chair today?
No, I think it's
not as a host, but as the guest.
I think I don't really move in a space of like favorites, like in a definitive space. So I never have favorites. I never have the answer. I never have the question.
Well, that's the answer.
Yeah, it's like I've always struggled with that. People ask you those questions, those kind of like random. What's your this? I'm like,
and it's not about curiosity at this point. It becomes it's not even engaging. It's just a question. So tell me this, and you're going, well, that's a Q&A. So now knowing your uncomfortability, the being authentic in who we are, it's like, that actually makes me feel very uncomfortable. Not that in a good way or bad way, but that's our our authenticity.
I'd flip it on you and ask you, what's the one thing you want to know about me that's like,
I want to know everything that you do about the podcast, and this is what was it about? Everything that your experience sharing, and you've given that social media side,
Yep.
the things that I know that I don't know, and you'd answer them through and through. And it's great to have you under number 3.
yeah, this is it's cool. I think it's the other cool thing about this exchange, it's like it's good practice for me. You know, instead of being the host, instead of just like asking the questions and listening, you know, this skill has to be honed also, you know, to be on the other side of the mic or the other side of the table answering. I think that's why I appreciate the invite, because this puts me in a situation I'm not in very regularly. So it's good to push yourself and just kind of get out of your comfort zone.
And that's right. And how many hosts out there, and you ask that question, actually sit on the other chair and go, oh, so that's what it feels like. And to ask that question.
Yep.
But anyway, thank you very much, Jeff. Thanks for joining me at Shed Talk today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Now you know. Shed Talk.